This video is sponsored by Classic Football Shirts, the best place to get your classic and vintage football shirts. To get cheap retro Palace shirts, click the link in the description below. And for an extra 10% off, use the code CFSPJ10 at checkout. Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook, and in today's podcast, I'll be looking over the game against Liverpool by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you interviews with Roy Hodgson, Martin Kelly, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Patrick Vanano after the game. So let's begin. For the third game in succession at Selhurst Park, Palace were the victims of late drama as Mohamed Salah popped up 6 minutes from time to complete a 2-1 comeback win for Liverpool. The Eagles had taken an early lead when Luka Milivojevic fired home a penalty on 13 minutes, but after keeping the Reds at bay for the remainder of the first half, Sadio Mane was the bane of Palace again as he equalised 4 minutes after the restart. However, after Christian Benteke fired two big opportunities off target, and Mane escaped a second yellow card for a deliberate handball, Salah, who had been quiet all afternoon, was in the right place to fire home the winner from close range and once again deny Roy Hodgson's team at the death. An encouraging start saw the opening chance fall to the Eagles after just 8 minutes when Wilfried Zaha chased a long ball and got behind Trent Alexander-Arnold to create a shooting chance. But the on-rushing Karius managed to deflect it away with his chest. However, there would soon be a scare at the other end when Virgil van Dijk headed a corner goalwards, which Mane, in an effort to divert its course and deceive Wayne Hennessy, could only nudge it off target. But on 11 minutes, another burst forward by Zaha would lead to the deadlock being broken. The winger raced onto a Benteke flick-on and managed to prod the ball past Karius before being clattered by the keeper. Nick Solbrick had no hesitation in pointing to the spot, allowing Milivojevic to send Karius the wrong way and score his 7th penalty of the campaign. After finding themselves behind, Liverpool began to work through the gears and would go on to dominate possession for the rest of the half, and chances soon began to fall their way. Some tidy build-up play allowed Salah to shoot straight at Hennessy, and after Roberto Firmino got on the end of a corner, Mane nodded the ball into the corner of the net from 3 yards out but was rightly flagged offside. The pressure continued as half-time drew closer, and after Salah curled another shot goalwards which Hennessy was equal to, the Egyptian whipped a corner into the box which Mane headed towards the bottom corner, but the Welshman, on the occasion of his 100th Palace appearance, showed great reactions to drop to his right and flick the ball away from his goal line. But having escaped into the changing rooms with their lead still intact, it took just 4 minutes after the restart for Palace's lead to slip away, when Mane came back to haunt them again. Firmino was allowed too much time to get the ball under control in the area and laid it off to James Milner, who fizzed a low centre. And the Senegalese attacker managed to nip in ahead of Mamadou Sakho and steer it past Hennessy to score his 5th goal in his last 6 matches against the Eagles. There had been little Palace threat on the Reds' goal since they had taken the lead, but that all changed when two huge chances arrived in the space of 2 minutes. Firstly, Andros Townsend nodded the ball into Benteke's path, allowing the striker a clean route on goal, but his attempted lob over Karius dropped well wide of the post. And then 60 seconds later, Townsend cut inside from the right and teed up the striker again, but he could only fire the ball over the bar from the edge of the box. Despite seeing 2 great chances squandered, Palace's tails were up and they were a flashpoint on the hour mark when Mane, who'd already been booked for diving, grabbed the ball appealing for a free kick during a tussle with Yohan Cabaye, inexplicably not shown a second yellow card, despite Strawbrick agreeing that it had been an act of deliberate handball. Patrick Vanano took the resulting free kick and forced Karius into a flying save, as the German pushed the rocket over the crossbar. But with 6 minutes to go, the visitors would find a way to grab the win. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain probed down the right, and his cross found Andrew Robertson on the opposite flank, and he first time put it across the area to Salah, who lashed the ball into the bottom corner of the net to net his 29th Premier League goal of the campaign and snatch all 3 points for the Merseysiders. Crystal Palace were narrowly beaten 2-1 by Liverpool in a lunchtime kick-off in the Premier League on Saturday. Despite taking the lead through a Luka Milivojevic penalty in the first half, goals from Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah sealed the win for the visitors. But what did we learn from the game at Selhurst Park? Here are 5 things. Number 1. Luka Milivojevic has now scored the most amount of penalties in the Premier League this season. To add to that, he is the highest scorer from the sport in Europe's top 5 leagues. He has 7 to his name, with 8 taken so far this campaign. His opener at Selhurst Park was superbly struck, hard and low into the bottom left corner to send Loris Karius the wrong way. Number 2. Adding to the above, it seems that Wilfried Zaha is a targeted man in the Premier League. He has won the most amount of penalties so far this season. He is tied with 4 alongside Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Manchester City's Raheem Sterling. All that skill and trickery. Number 3. Apart from the penalty, Palace didn't really offer much in front of goal. In the first half they had just 2 attempts, compared to Liverpool's Roberto Firmino who had 6. Wilfried Zaha had a few bright moments, but Andros Townsend was quiet, and that meant that Christian Benteke had nothing to work with. When those rare moments came in the second half, Benteke in particular didn't produce, while Patrick Villano had a fierce free kick well saved. However, to add to this, Palace needed some drive through the middle. Yohan Cabaye and James McArthur ran their socks off, but couldn't do much getting forward. Ruben Loftus-Cheek's return to the field should hopefully solve this problem in the next few weeks. Number 4. James Tompkins has been immense in recent months, but Palace's defensive pairing, former Liverpool duo Martin Kelly and Mamadou Sakho, looked reliable and strong together. Tompkins is a miss, but do you think that the Eagles would have enough defensive cover to see them through over the line to avoid relegation? You could even play all 3 when fit together. And number 5. Christian Benteke proved yet again why he's not good enough with his feet. If Palace are to stay up, it doesn't look like it'll be down to him. The Eagles should look to offload him in the summer and bring in someone with that killer instinct and all-round game up front. The frustration has gone on for too long now, and the majority of supporters know it. He's got to take the chances when they come to him. £100 plus a week? I don't think so. So I'm now going to move on to the player ratings, but before I start, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Crystal Palace for all the latest Palace news. And also, if you're on Facebook, do feel free to join our Facebook group, which is a really great place to join in with discussions and also share your opinions with other fans. And much like a forum, it's a great place to upload any videos and any news articles you found online that you do want to share with other Palace fans. So like I've said there, if you do want to get in contact with us, then of course you can do so via our Twitter and Facebook pages. But also, if you want a place to get all the latest news and you want to share the news yourself, then of course do also feel free to join the Facebook group. You will be accepted into it. And much like every forum out there, it's a really great place to connect with other fans. Now, another great place to share your opinion is in your YouTube comments. So if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then do feel free to put your comments below with your player ratings, rating the players' performances from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. And the only reason I really want you to do this is so that I can come back to the video, and rather than just having my own opinion of the game, I can read the comment section and see what the listeners thought about the game. And even if you're not a Palace fan, you're a Liverpool fan, even if you don't want to do your player ratings, then just do comment below anything about the game. You know, whether you thought it should have been a penalty, whether Mane should have been sent off, anything like that, anything about the game, even if it's about a specific player or about the manager or the tactics, anything about the game, comment that below. And that's purely because I can come back to the video and see what the listeners thought, but also any other people who come to the video, whether they're Liverpool or Palace fans, they can also read what you guys have said as well as listening to my opinion. So it's another way of getting everyone involved, and when you say there's quite a lot to talk about in this game, so I suppose there'd be quite a lot of discussion below. Now, if you do want to follow any of these social media pages or join the Facebook group, then do check all links that will be in the description below. But before I go on to talk about the player ratings, I'm just going to give you a small summary of the game, as I was on holiday, so I'm doing this a few days later than I would normally do. So just to go over the game, you know, give you a few pointers, some of the key events, and then I'll go on to talk about the player ratings, you know, basically breaking down and talking about each player performances individually. So in terms of the game, obviously Palace scored first about 13 minutes into the game, a penalty from Luka Milivojevic. Obviously Wilfried Zaha brought down in the box by Loris Karius. I don't think there's really can be any discussion about this. Loris Karius, there's no need for him to run off his goal line. He's run off his goal line. Zaha's went to bring the ball around him, and he's absolutely catted him and brought him to the ground. So I think there's no really debate about whether that's a penalty or not. Some people would say it's soft or Zaha had a high boot, but if a player's gone to dribble around the goalkeeper has to stay on his goal line or try and block the shot. There's no need for him when basically it looked like Zaha was going to go away from him anyway and get the ball around him. There's no need for the goalkeeper to come out and take him down. So there's no real debate there really for me. You know, definite penalty. And then obviously Luka Milivojevic, you know, we know how good he is at penalty taking. dispatches it perfectly into the bottom corner, lots of power, and obviously sent Karius the wrong way. You know, we know how confident he is with penalties, and once again there against Karius, showing the good ability there, and he's now the top penalty scorer in the Premier League and also in Europe's top 5 leagues, which really just shows actually how much of a skill his penalty taking is. Now obviously after the break, obviously Liverpool 1-0 down, they're putting quite a lot of pressure on Palace. James Milner gets the ball to the edge of the area, whips in a fantastic cross, something which I've wanted to see from Palace for the last few weeks. We haven't been putting in them types of crosses. Milner gets in the box, whips it in, Sadio Mane from close range puts it in. You know, yes, people could say you should defend better and Hennessy should get it, but the pace of that ball and the fact that it was such close range, there's only so much you can do. But in terms of preventing it, maybe some of the build-up play. So in terms of stopping Milner getting into the box to put that cross in the first place would have been a better thing to pick up on, rather than the fact we should have defended Mane better. Because for me personally, all of the goals come from mistakes in the build-up, not necessarily the goal scoring or the player who scores the goal. The mistake didn't come from defending him. Sometimes it's in the build-up, and in that instance, I think that actually someone, whoever was marking Milner, should have done a better job in terms of not letting him get so free into the box. Now in terms of Mane, I'll go and talk about this later on when I talk about the performance as a whole. But just to go over it, Mane should have been sent off. I don't think there's no debate about this. Yes, it was probably a foul on him, the fact that he got taken down, but until the referee blows a whistle, it's not a foul. So the fact that he picked up the ball when the whistle hadn't been blown, that's a blatant yellow card. That's a blatant handball. And you saw the referee. The referee went to get a second yellow card out, saw it was Mane who was already on a yellow card, and put the card back in. So he was ready to give him a yellow card, but obviously he realised he was already on a yellow card and wasn't going to give him the red card. But I don't understand why he haven't given that. It's a blatant handball. Yes, he could argue it's a foul on him, but until the referee's blown the whistle, it's not a foul. So literally he grabbed the ball to his chest. Blatant handball, should have been sent off. Now I'm not going to moan too much in the fact that yes, Mane should have got sent off, and that's why we should have not drawn the game or won the game. I'm personally not going to blame it on that, but certainly the inconsistency there is just unbelievable. If a player handballs the ball deliberately, you've got to send him off, whether he's on a yellow card or not. Give him the second yellow card, because that is a yellow card offence. But obviously, once again, handball, loads of people picked up, former referees and pundits. It is a yellow card. End of story. People would say, oh, it's a bit harsh and he shouldn't have been booked for diving anyway. But personally for me, 2 yellow cards, both of them were bookable offences, should have seen red. Now obviously Christian Benteke had a few chances towards the end of the game. Fantastic through balls, I think one from Zaha, one from Andros Townsend, and he missed both chances. Both of them went over the net, over the bar, sorry. Terrible misses, and obviously that went on to cost us, because at that time, 1-1, probably if he had scored that 2-1, we might have been able to hold on to the game. And the fact that he had 2 similar chances within the space of about a minute, he probably could have made it 3-1 and probably game over for Palace. So Christian Benteke, I've stuck up for him recently. I'm going to go on to talk about his performance later on. Obviously he's low of confidence, but when you've got chances like that even I probably could have scored, obviously you're going to expect better from him. Now obviously after that mistake by Benteke, obviously Mohamed Salah, who's been fantastic this season, he was actually quite quiet in this game. He got man of the match by some people. I don't really know why, because the goal he scored was a tap-in once again. Robertson, much like Milner, got in behind, put in a cross in, and Salah, yes, obviously he put it into the back of the net, but realistically he didn't play well the whole game, and actually that goal wasn't really fantastic. So everyone's like, praising him, oh, he's so great. Well, actually we done really well at stopping him in this game, because he was really quiet. And actually the goal he scored was only a tap-in, so he wasn't exactly great in this game. But like I've said already, it's not necessarily the fact that it was scored by Salah and it was the defending on him was bad. It's the fact that we let Robertson have so much space, and I think it was Wan-Bissaka. The fact that we gave Robertson so much space is the thing that I'm not happy with. I'm not really going to complain too much of the fact that Salah scored. It's actually the build-up to the goal, because if we had just cleared the ball or blocked the cross from Robertson, then ultimately that wouldn't have happened. But really for me, that was just a small summary of the game. Obviously the key events, what should have happened and what didn't happen, and chances we missed. But overall, the only reason I've done that is because I'm doing this podcast a few days later than I would normally do, because I've been on holiday over Easter. So that was just a small summary of the game. But I'm now going to move on to the player ratings, starting in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I'm going to give a 6. On his 100th start for the club, Wayne Hennessy produced a really good low save to deny Sadio Mane a header from close range. It would be harsh to point any specific blame to him for either goal. So Wayne Hennessy here, I've given him a 6, and much like his performances have been in recent weeks, other than a few little mistakes here and there, his performances have gradually been getting better, and in this game here against Liverpool, I've given him a 6 because although obviously we did concede 2 goals, I don't think there was really much blame on Hennessy, and actually he didn't really have to make a save in the game, so we weren't really tested. So overall, quite an average performance from him. But obviously his performance, put that aside, is his 100th start for the club, so obviously congratulations for him there. And although he comes up for quite a lot of criticism, it's obviously quite an achievement to get to 100 starts for the club, and obviously I do congratulate him for that. But I'm sure that obviously we've got a goalkeeper, obviously Vicente Gaeta, coming in the summer, so maybe Hennessy might not get a contract renewal, but he said he wants to stay at the club, so maybe Hennessy might be second choice next season, and maybe he'll be able to build on them 100 starts for the club. But once again here, on the occasion, he didn't let it get to him, and like I said already, he put in an average performance, nothing fantastic and nothing bad as well. But the one thing I did like about his game is this one save in particular he made from Sadio Mane in the first half. Absolutely fantastic save, got down really low, stretched really well, and managed to get the ball away from danger. You know, it was a great header from Mane from a corner, and obviously Hennessy, we know how tall he is, and on that occasion he used his height to his advantage to actually get down low and stretch to get the ball away. So once again, great chance for Mane to score, but Hennessy was equal to it and produced that fantastic save. But other than that, I can't really recall any other saves he made, so really for me, I think that's why I've given him a 6, is the fact that he made one fantastic save. The rest of the game he was really quiet, and to be honest, I think it would be very harsh to point any blame on him for the goal. You know, I've seen people on Twitter, especially right after we conceded a goal, people were getting really angry about it, saying, oh, Hennessy should have saved that, the goalkeeper's the problem. But if you look back at it, and I've talked about it already, it's actually the build up to the goal which was the problem. Not necessarily the defending or the fact that Hennessy couldn't make a save. Yes, obviously he did look a bit stupid the way he dived and he tried to get the ball, but personally for me it's the build up to the goal which was at fault for the goal. The fact that we let them crosses come in from Robertson and Milner, they're the problems, not the fact that Hennessy wasn't able to get down low and save them. So personally for me, no blame whatsoever on Hennessy for the goals we conceded. And like I've said, with that save from Mane, it could have easily been 1-1 at the end of the first half. So the fact that he kept us in the game at that point and actually didn't really have that much fault for the rest of the game, I do think a 6 is a fair result. So do comment below with your thoughts about Hennessy's performance. Now to move on to the right back, Wan-Bissaka, who I'm going to give a 6. Turned his back when James Milner pretended to cross, then delivered a low ball for Mane to score. Apart from that one lapse, the young defender continued to look the part in the Premier League team. Replaced by Timothy Fosu-Mensah late in the match. So Wan-Bissaka here, I've given him a 6, and much like the performance of Wayne Hennessy, it was a very average performance, you know, nothing spectacular like we've seen in the last few games. But when you consider he's only 20 years old, he's only played a couple of Premier League games now. Yes, he's played them really well, but he's only had a couple of games. He's continuing to actually make that right back role his own, and actually he's putting in pretty good performances again. And obviously I've given him a 6 because I thought his overall defensive performance, especially in the first half in terms of containing Salah and Mane, I thought that was relatively good. But in the second half there was just one little lapse of concentration, and that's obviously where he let James Milner, as I've already discussed already, he let James Milner get an easy cross into the box for Mane to score. So in terms of that goal, you know, I said I'm not going to blame Hennessy, but if we are going to blame someone, maybe the inexperience of Wan-Bissaka showed there in the fact that he got turned quite easily by James Milner and he wasn't able to block that cross. But personally for me, no blame on Hennessy for that goal, but maybe Wan-Bissaka, you know, we know he's slightly inexperienced, but he showed that he can do it at a top level. He's slightly inexperienced, and that showed there in the fact that he obviously got turned quite easily by James Milner. But the thing I've got to say about his performance is, other than that one little lapse of concentration, which every player does get, I've given him a 6 because I thought his overall play was really good. And the thing that I really like about his performance, you know, he's played against top teams now. You know, we've seen him play against Man United, you know, we've seen him play against Tottenham. So he's played against all these top teams and he's actually hasn't looked out of place. And once again here against Liverpool, who personally in my opinion, out of the top teams we played recently, is probably Liverpool, you could argue, is the best one on current form. So the fact that Wan-Bissaka is still able to look not out of place in the Premier League team shows that actually maybe he's starting to develop and actually have that quality to look a real solid part and integral teammate in that team. So really for me, his performance wasn't fantastic here like it's been in other games, but he's still done his part and still didn't look out of place in the Premier League team, which is of course great to see. Now in terms of, the end of the game, he obviously got taken off for Tim Fosu-Mensah towards the end of the game. Not really nothing to do about his performance. I think it was just Roy trying to insert a bit more pace and a bit more experience into the side. Yes, Wan-Bissaka is older than Fosu-Mensah, but Fosu-Mensah's played a lot more games for Man United and Palace than Wan-Bissaka has. And obviously he just gave us a little bit more, I suppose, crossing ability is the main thing. We tried to get crosses into the box, and that's something that Wan-Bissaka is 50-50 at. Some of his crosses go out for throw-ins, some of them are pretty good, whereas Fosu-Mensah is a little bit more consistent with his crosses. So I think that was trying to, us trying to get something towards the end of the game. That's why that substitution was made. But personally for me, he weren't taken off because he was playing bad. It's just because obviously Roy was trying to change up the system. But overall, a 6 for him, another good performance here. And other than the fact that he obviously got turned by Milner, I thought that he defended relatively well for the whole game. And hopefully in the next few games, we've got important games coming up against not necessarily lesser teams, but teams that are obviously easier than, the likes of Liverpool, Manchester United and Tottenham. Because we've got these games coming up, hopefully that will give him an even better chance to show the skills he's got. So, and Wan-Bissaka here, the player of the month, a 6 for him. Now to move on to the centre-back, Mamadou Sakho, who I'm going to give a 5. Marking certainly was not his strong point this afternoon. In the first half, he let Virgil van Dijk escape from his attention from a corner, and the defender headed narrowly over. After the break, Mane got in front of the Palace defender and poked in the equalising goal. So Mamadou Sakho here, we know how good he's been this season and particularly last season, and actually we did miss him when he was out injured. So of course the last few games where he's come back from injury, he's obviously made a big difference to the side. But obviously playing against his old club here against Liverpool, he didn't quite have the performance he would have liked, and certainly was at fault for the goals we did concede. But the one thing I did pick out about his performance is that in the first half, he was good defensively. I thought overall, other than letting Virgil van Dijk escape for the corner where he headed just wide, other than that, I thought, much like Wan-Bissaka, I thought relatively defended really well. But it was in the second half where it started to show glimpses of, I've talked about it already, but his misconcentration. We see that quite a lot this season, where he tries to do something spectacular, loses a bit of concentration, or tries to do something spectacular when actually he should just do the basics right. And obviously there were a few times we saw that here against Liverpool. So overall for me, I would have given him a 6, but because of these little lapses of concentration, and obviously the fact that where his marking did slack towards the end of the second half, because of that, obviously that's why I've given him a 5. But like I said already, relatively good in the first half. Second half, obviously we conceded 2 goals. Notably, one of them probably Wan-Bissaka's fault for letting the ball come in from Milner, and then the other one, cross coming in from Robertson, and obviously Mamadou Sakho wasn't really marking properly, and of course we went on to concede the goal. So I believe the first goal was both Sakho's and Wan-Bissaka's fault in terms of letting Milner put the ball in, and the fact that Mane was able to score. So of course Mamadou Sakho should have done better there. And in terms of the Salah goal, we see Sakho try going for a tackle. Instead of doing that, stay on your feet, just try and block the shot rather than just making it easy and getting out of the way of the attacker. So personally for me, the first goal, certainly his fault because he was the one who wasn't marking Mane and just gave him the space to score the tap-in. And obviously for the second goal, rather than going to ground, maybe he should try to at least stay on his feet so he could at least try and block the shot rather than just giving it a free passage for Mohamed Salah to score. But Mamadou Sakho here, obviously he's a great asset to the side, coming back from injury. He's obviously helped us and boosted the team in terms of his quality, but maybe this was just an off game here because I thought first half relatively strong, but obviously second half we started to see his marking slacken a bit, and obviously we know he likes playing from the back, but sometimes he just looks so I don't know how to describe it, but when he's on the ball, he does scare myself and most of the crowd at Selhurst Park, because whenever he's on the ball, we don't know what he's going to do, and I suppose that's sort of just the magic of Mamadou Sakho. But personally for me, not the best performance here, but I'm sure it will improve in recent weeks. But certainly there is a lot to take from his first half performance, and all he has to do on the training ground is just work on his marking, and I'm sure he'll be back to normal pretty soon. Obviously moving on now to the other centre-back, and that is Martin Kelly, who I'm also going to give a 5. Came in for James Tompkins, who was not fit to play a part of the squad, and put in a shaky display. Might have conceded a penalty in the second half when he had plenty of Virgil van Dijk's shirt in his hand, but the referee missed it. So Martin Kelly here, I've given him a 5, and his performance is pretty similar to Sakho's in the fact that first half, when we were 1-0 up, we obviously kept that clean sheet for that half. I thought he played relatively well, you know, coming in for the injured James Tompkins, who obviously wasn't fit enough to be in the squad. I thought he'd done an alright performance, especially in the first half. But obviously in the second half, much like Sakho's performance, it was slightly shaky, you know, he didn't look really confident on the ball. And maybe that's because both Sakho and Kelly are playing against their old clubs, and sometimes that can have a little bit of an impact on players, and it certainly did look like that here. And maybe it was because of that, or maybe it's just because the quality that Liverpool had, they knew they were 1 goal down, so they put all of the attacking pressure on us. And maybe Palace, you know, Sakho and Kelly, maybe we couldn't deal with it, and that's probably why we went on to lose the game. But personally for me, coming in for James Tompkins, I weren't necessarily worried, because we know how good Kelly can be, and we did see that in glimpses, you know, on Saturday, how good he can be. But ultimately, this was like Sakho, this was an off game for him there. Now in terms of the second half, you know, already I've talked about the penalties and sending offs that didn't happen in the game. Obviously, people have said that Virgil van Dijk's shirt was held in the box by Martin Kelly. Personally for me, I know we've been given penalties for that this season, and at the time I said they were very soft. And personally for me, this one would have been a very soft one as well, because in the box, you know, whenever we had a corner, Liverpool players were pulling Palace shirts, and whenever, you know, Liverpool had a corner, Palace players were pulling their shirts as well. So personally for me, I can understand the ref missing it purely because it happened all over the pitch. But personally for me, I don't want to sound biased, but I don't see that as a penalty. And like I've said, when we had a penalty given for the exact same thing earlier on in the season, I did say it was a very harsh decision. So personally for me, I can't really put too much blame on Kelly for that, because even if it was a penalty, I think it would have been harsh. But personally for me, you know, I'm not going to put too much blame on Kelly, because he wasn't the main guy at blame for the goals. But personally for me, you know, much like Sakho, I've given him a 5 because it was a slightly disappointing performance. Although the first half was good, second half, once again, the concentration, lapse in concentration, which ultimately led to us conceding them goals. And like I said already, the word I used to describe it was shaky, because it really was a shaky performance from Kelly. Looked alright in parts, but in other parts in the game didn't look quite shaky. And whether that's because he was playing against his old side, or whether it's just because of the quality that Liverpool had, it wasn't exactly clear. But do comment below with your thoughts about Sakho and Kelly as a defensive partnership, and obviously do comment below as well who you thought was at fault for the goals. But Martin Kelly here, a 5 for him. Now to move on to the left back, Patrick Van Aanholt, who I'm going to give a 6. With Mohamed Salah on his mind, the fullback rarely ventured forward and opted to stick to his defensive duties. He forced a good save from Karras, who tipped over his free kick, which was heading for the top corner. So Patrick Van Aanholt here, I've given him a 6, and much like the performance of Wan-Bissaka on the other flank, I think it was a pretty average performance from Van Aanholt when you consider how good he's been over the last month. But obviously in this game against Mohamed Salah, probably other than Harry Kane, the best player in the Premier League this season, obviously it's going to be a difficult task defending up against him. And obviously because of the threat that Salah and that Firmino, you know, the pace and skill and the threat they have, because of that, it meant that Van Aanholt was pretty much restricted to staying in his defensive duties. He wasn't really able to venture forward as much as he would have liked. And personally for me, that's what sort of brought down his performance, because I think if everything wasn't really directed at Mohamed Salah, so if we gave Salah a little bit more freedom and just let Van Aanholt actually try and counter-attack rather than just staying and marking Salah for the whole game, maybe we would have had a few more attacking opportunities. But I still think up against Mohamed Salah, like I've said already, the goal he scored was a tap-in. So realistically, he really didn't play really well in this game, and he got a lucky goal because it was a it was a tap-in. So really for me, Patrick Van Aanholt, the main man marking Salah, I thought he'd done a relatively good job in doing that. And like I said already, because of that, it obviously restricted him going forward. But like I've said, he still had to be constricted to his defensive duties, and I still thought he'd done a relatively good job there. And you know, when you consider Salah's goal didn't necessarily come from Van Aanholt's side, I think we can actually say that actually overall Van Aanholt, not a blame for any of the goals. Overall, keeping Salah quiet for the most part, I think you could say a really good game from him. So obviously the one good chance he did get going forward, obviously that was the Mane sending off, which it should have been. Obviously we got a free kick, which is fine, but if you're going to give a free kick, you also give a yellow card, which would have been a sending off. But obviously from that free kick, I think it was Luka and Van Aanholt standing over it, and obviously I thought Luka was going to take it because I thought that he scored one in pre-season from the opposite side, similar distance. But Van Aanholt, steps up and doing it, looking for the far corner almost gets it in there, and obviously forces Karius into a good save. So once again showing that actually offensively it's not only obviously his goal scoring and his crossing ability, which is quite good, but actually from a set piece he can actually put in quite a dangerous free kick. And you know, when you consider the likes of Andros Townsend, Kabay, Luka Milivojevic, you know, we've got all of these players who can take set pieces, which is good. But if you've got someone like Fernando who can actually put one which would go in top corner, if it wasn't for a fantastic world-class save from Karius, if it wasn't for that, he would have obviously scored that fantastic free kick. And certainly I would have put him up there, you know, to be one of our candidates to be a free kick taker for the rest of the season, because actually based on that showing there, he's got decent delivery, he's got the decent curve on it, so I don't see any reason why he couldn't carry on being our free kick taker for the rest of the season. But Patrick Fernando here, you know, nothing spectacular but nothing awful in this game. Done a reasonably good job against Mohamed Salah, which really restricted him offensively, but he's still done a relatively good job defensively. And in terms of the 1 or 2 chances you've got going forward, fantastic free kick heading for the top corner, and obviously forced a great save from Karius. So Patrick Fernando here, the left back, a 6 for him. Now to move on to the midfielder and captain Luka Milivojevic, who I am going to give an 8. When Milivojevic stepped up to the penalty spot with the ball in his hand, did anyone believe he wouldn't score? He extended his lead at the top of Palace's leading scorers table with a fine finish low to the left after sending Karius the wrong way. During the game he did well to plug the gap which Roberto Firmino likes to occupy between the defenders and midfielders. So Luka Milivojevic here, I've given him an 8, and much like his performances have been recently, the captain's been absolutely outstanding. And personally for me, you know, he's been much like James Tompkins before he got injured, he's been one of our most consistent players, and over the last sort of 2 months or so, it's very rarely that he puts in a bad performance and one that will be below a 7 rating. And once again here against Liverpool, a very tough opponents in terms of their attacking threat, I thought he'd done a fantastic job in terms of restricting them, and once again scoring another goal for Palace. Now obviously the question I posed to you was, you know, when he had the ball in his hand, went up to take the penalty, did anyone ever doubt that he was going to score? Not really, because we know how good he is with taking penalties, and the fact that he's now top Palace goal scorer, top penalty taker in the Premier League, top penalty taker in Europe's top 5 leagues, really just shows you actually how good of a penalty taker he is. And you know, it's such a great thing that we've actually got a player with this great ability and technique to be able to take fantastic penalties. Now obviously that was 13 minutes into the game. Wilfried Zaha brought down in the box by Karius. I discussed it already, but that was a clear penalty for me. You know, Karius should either stay in his goal line or try and block the shot rather than just taking the player out. And as for people calling it a high boot, Zaha's trying to get the ball. It wasn't a high boot, it was just, you know, reasonable height off the ground, not really high. And obviously Karius shouldn't really be taking him out there. So personally for me, a clear penalty. Goalkeeper, if the goalkeeper comes off the goal line and takes down your attacker, clear penalty for me. So personally for me, that was a definite penalty, and certainly other referees and pundits have said so. And obviously, once again, we know Luka, he steps up, he takes the opportunity to get Palace in the lead, score his, I think it's his 9th goal of the season, and obviously once again extending his lead at the top of the table. But what I've got to say is, obviously I talk about whenever he takes a penalty how good his technique was, but this one was absolutely fantastic. The power, the accuracy to get it into the bottom left, and obviously the skill to actually send the goalkeeper the wrong way, that was of course great to see as well. Now obviously it was great scoring a penalty, and of course if you score a goal in a game, even if you lose the game, you're going to get a higher rating because you know you've got your team into the lead at some point. But in terms of the defensive play, which we know is so good from him, in this game here, you know, Roberto Firmino has been fantastic this season, but in this game here, Luka, like he always does, giving protection to the back four, he done exactly that here against Liverpool. And when you consider Firmino, most of his success this season has come from actually playing in the areas between the defenders and the midfielders, because we had someone like Luka there that really restricted Firmino to limited amount of chances, and that's purely because of how well Luka defended. Because really, realistically, if you look back at the game, Mamadou Sakho Kelly didn't really have the best games defensively, whereas Luka here in front of them gave them so much protection that actually the attacking force of Liverpool was really restricted to minimal chances. And the main person I can pick up for that is Firmino, because Firmino, most of his success this season, like I've already said, comes from not necessarily playing as your full out striker, but he normally plays sort of as a false 9 almost. So he's not necessarily playing up front all the time, and because of that he normally plays in that space between the defenders and the midfielders. But because we've got someone there in Milivojevic who acts as a wall and protection in that area of the pitch, he obviously made it quite difficult for Firmino to score. So much like Fernando, doing relatively well in terms of dealing with Mohamed Salah, I thought in terms of the middle of the field, I thought that Luka Milivojevic done a fantastic job in terms of stopping Firmino, and whether it was through tackles and blocks and headers, or whether it's just because the way how he played out the ball from the back and actually was starting up attacks, whatever it was, Luka's overall game is absolutely fantastic, and that's why I've given him the 8. Yes, he scored the penalty, which is of course great to see, but his overall defensive performance and in the fact that he stopped Firmino so much, that is obviously what warrants the 8 for me. So once again, Luka Milivojevic, the captain, a fantastic performance from him. Now to move on to James McArthur, who I'm going to give a 7. Was very precise and efficient with his short and long passing. On the ball, he excluded the sort of composure that would impress Pep Guardiola. Another very nice display. So James McArthur here, I've given him a 7, and much like his performances are most weeks, you know, this was another performance of lots of effort and lots of fantastic passing, and that's something I like from McArthur's performances. Not only the fact that he's fairly consistent whenever he plays for Palace, but just that energy and that just determination he brings to the side. And obviously in this game here against Liverpool, it was really important for us to be quite tight in the midfield, so Luka, McArthur and Cabaye were pretty tight together, and that done a really great job in terms of stopping Liverpool. So that was the main thing in terms of restricting them to chances, and also whenever we had attacks going forward, we had to be efficient, and I did certainly think that Cabaye and McArthur, but McArthur in particular, him playing slightly further forward, I thought that he was really efficient in terms of making the most of our attacking opportunities. And obviously the main reason I've given him a 7 is although we didn't have that many attacking chances throughout the game, I thought that he was very precise and efficient with his short and long passing. So whenever we had the chances to go forward, someone like Luka would get the ball to McArthur or get the ball out wide, and whenever he did that, McArthur was there to not only obviously ping the ball forward or just to pass it short, but also he was able to do it quite accurately with quite good precision to make sure it was in the right places at the right time. So actually the fact that he's got that ability on the ball with his passing was of course great to see, and you know, when you've got a team as good as Liverpool, you're not really going to have that many chances offensively, so when you do have it, you need someone with composure who can obviously make the most of them chances, and that's certainly what McArthur did do there. And obviously on the ball, once again, he was very composed, and personally for me, obviously people talk about Man City playing total football, they're fantastic on and off the ball, they have lots of composure. This is what we saw from McArthur's game here. You know, I'm not going to say that McArthur would get into that Man City side, but just the amount of composure on the ball and his passing is something that probably would have impressed Pep Guardiola, because that's what you got, everything you wanted from McArthur in the game. You know, you wanted him to be good defensively, which he was. You wanted him to go forward and be composed and keep hold of the ball. He'd done that. So really for me, if he was in the Man City side, I'm sure Pep Guardiola would have been very impressed with his performance, because he'd done everything you would want from, I suppose you could call him a box-to-box midfielder as he was in this game. And overall for me, you know, obviously I've given him 7. It was just another really nice display from him. You know, overall, offensively, defensively, he was really solid. Nothing really that impressive in the game, you know, in terms of a goal-scoring opportunity or a fantastic cross. But I do think his overall play was really efficient in the game. And certainly with a few injuries we've got, I think in the next coming games, you know, we've got the likes of Bournemouth, Brighton, Watford coming up. These games are going to be really important in terms of winning that midfield battle. So hopefully McArthur in the next few games can continue with these sort of levels of performances. But James McArthur here, a 7 for him. Now to move on to Yohan Cabaye, who I'm going to give a 7. Cabaye showed off an impressive range of long passing when given the space. One particularly good pass to find Zaha with a chipped through ball which bemused the Liverpool back line. Replaced by Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the 73rd minute to great ovation. Contract talks are ongoing, and the Eagles could do with keeping a cool passer like him. So Yohan Cabaye here, I've given him a 7, and very similar to the performance of Milivojevic and obviously McArthur as well. I thought that he played really well in that midfield battle in terms of restricting the amount of chances that Liverpool had, and in terms of us not getting demolished like other teams had against Liverpool this season. I think that the midfield was quite important, and I do think Yohan Cabaye did have quite a crucial role to play. Now, much like McArthur, Cabaye was playing slightly further forward than Milivojevic, so he had a chance to go forward. And I think that quite a lot of the time, Cabaye was always looking to play the ball when we were on the counter-attack. And actually, there was quite a few impressive long passes from him. So, whenever he had the space, he wasn't just looking to pass the ball back and not actually try and attack Liverpool. He obviously tried to get the ball forward. And quite a lot of the time, it was through very impressive long-range passes. So, much like McArthur, who was doing both, he was doing short and long passes. Cabaye was primarily, you know, putting these fantastic long crossfield balls to help start up attacks. So whenever he was given the space, he was doing that, which of course which was great to see. And there was one in particular where he put a fantastic long-range effort to find Zaha, managed to get over the Liverpool backline, and obviously Zaha wasn't able to quite, get on the end of that chance. But that just shows a bit of intent from Cabaye. The fact that Cabaye is able to set up a chance and actually get a player through on goal. And obviously from Zaha's side as well, it actually shows the fact that he ran onto it, shows obviously the intent as well to actually get on the end of every cross that goes forward. So in both perspectives, in terms of getting the ball forward and creating a chance, it was of course great to see Cabaye trying to do that. Now obviously, he was taken off on the 73rd minute, much like the substitution of Wan-Bissaka. It wasn't necessarily because he was playing bad. It's mainly because obviously we want to get Ruben Loftus-Cheek back into the team because he's quite important. But also it's the fact that Cabaye is getting old. He's getting old now. His legs are starting to go, so he can't last the full 90 minutes. But fair play to him for playing as well as he did for the 73 minutes he was on the pitch. But, quite understandably, he gets a bit tired, a bit fatigued towards the end of the game. So rather than risk him, making a mistake or a bad pass, take him off, bring in some fresh legs. And certainly Loftus-Cheek didn't really impress, but personally for me, I still do understand why Roy Hodgson did make that substitution. And obviously, because of his great performance, everyone in the stand gave him a great standing ovation, and fair play, because I do think he does deserve it for the performance he had. Now, in terms of contract talks, obviously there are quite a lot of players who are out of contract at the end of the season. We've got the likes of Wayne Hennessy, Martin Kelly, Joe Ward, obviously Young Cabaye, James McArthur. So there's quite a lot of players out of contract, and ultimately, we're going to lose quite a lot of players in the summer unless we give them new contracts. And Cabaye's been one of these players who's been linked with a new contract. And obviously, in the press conference before the Liverpool game, Roy Hodgson said to the press that actually Palace are in contract talks with Young Cabaye, which is of course great to see. They want to keep Cabaye at the club for possibly a year, maybe 2 years. So that will obviously be great to see because he's quite an important asset to the side. And obviously, someone like McArthur as well, it would be great to keep him at the club. So really, for me, contract talks are really important because as much as the transfer window is important in terms of keeping, bringing players in, it's actually really important to also keep players rather than let them go to other clubs on free transfer. So personally, for me, Young Cabaye does deserve to get this new contract, and hopefully they'll be able to negotiate it and he stays at the club even longer, because I do think he's quite an important asset. But there are quite a lot of players out of contract, and personally for me, Cabaye and McArthur are the two main ones, which for me, and Bakary Saka as well, do deserve new contracts. But personally for me, we could actually do Palace in keeping a passer like him, because actually, even though he may not be good at running anymore because he's starting to lose his legs, I still think Johan has actually got that ability to put in a fantastic pass, and that's something that's quite crucial to the side. So Young Cabaye here, a 7 for him. Now to move on to the winger Andros Townsend, who I'm going to give a 6. Improved as the game went on and started causing problems with his direct running in the second half. His decision making on the break was especially impressive. On one occasion he showed the coolness and awareness to hold the ball up, which drew the defenders towards him before releasing Benteke. So Andros Townsend here, I've given him a 6, and much like what I've said with quite a few players, it was sort of a game of two halves for Townsend, in the fact that in the opposite to the likes of Kelly and Saka, where they had good first halves and slightly worse second halves, I do think Andros Townsend had not necessarily the best first half, but in the second half he improved quite drastically and actually started to cause quite a lot of problems for the Liverpool defenders. And the main thing that was difficult for them to deal with, obviously they have the pace up front, but the main thing for us, the main asset we have is obviously the direct running and the skill of the two wingers. And because of that, because of the direct running in the second half from Townsend, it obviously caused quite a lot of problems for the Liverpool defenders, because obviously it was quite difficult for them to deal with. And personally for me, that's the reason I've given him a 6, is the fact that although he wasn't great, he was still causing problems. And there was one thing I liked, especially in the second half, was his decision making. So the fact that whenever he was going on the break, so he was using his direct running to get in behind or get to the byline, and then instead of just crossing the ball and it goes out for a corner or it goes out for a throw, or rather than just crossing the ball and it gets cleared, it actually make a really impressive decision. So his decision maker was great, and there was one occasion where he held up the ball, showed quite a lot of coolness, shrugged off a few players, and rather than just crossing it into the area, he actually dragged a few players to him, which gave space to Benteke, and then released the ball to Benteke. So rather than just crossing it into no man's land and 50-50 whether it's going to get to a player, he'd actually stay cool, make a good decision, and actually pull the defenders in to make space and release it to another player. So that was really impressive about his gameplay. Now, of course, his decision making normally with shots and crosses, he always likes to have cut inside and have shots in the game. We didn't see that much here. Maybe that was just an instruction. You know, the only really attacking threat we saw from Townsend is when he drew defenders in and passed to Benteke. So rather than doing what he normally does in terms of cutting inside and having shots and, you know, trying to put a cross in the area, he was now actually trying to play it on the ball and actually just run at defenders rather than just trying to cross it in. So maybe it was a change of tactics, but whatever it was, it seemed to work, especially in the second half. Once again, although the performance was great, much like other players in the side, yes, it was great. You know, you've got likes of Panchavanana, whose performance was sort of average, but to make Townsend's performance even better was maybe if he had a few more chances on goal, because if he had a few more chances and put that with his decision making, maybe he could have scored, because his decision making in this game was on point. And like I've said already, he's one of our most consistent players this season, and hopefully if he can put in performances like this where he actually causes problems for the opposition and actually has that decision making to find a good pass, then hopefully there'll be more chances for him this season. But Andros Townsend here, playing on the wing, a 6 for him. Now to move on to Wilfried Zaha, who I'm going to give a 7. Has another assist to his name after drawing a foul from Karras in the area to set up Milivojevic to score. The winger bravely touched a lofted pass beyond the goalkeeper, who then clattered into him. When he got Trent Alexander-Arnold one-on-one, he was making things happen, but Liverpool often double up on their marking, which was effective. So Wilfried Zaha here, I've given him a 7, and unlike Andros Townsend on the other wing, Zaha had a few more goal-scoring opportunities in the game, which ultimately some of them he took, and others of them he didn't do so well with. But the main thing really about this performance, and the main reason he's got a 7 as opposed to a 6, is that although similar to Townsend, he was quite offensive in this game, the thing that he has extra is actually Zaha had something to show for it. So Zaha got an assist in the game. Obviously I talked about it already in terms of the penalty, but Milivojevic scored it after Karras brought down Zaha in the box. You know, once again already talking about the long balls, but fantastic long ball over the top. Zaha's, or I think Benteke flicked it on, Zaha's gone to try and control it. He's done pretty good touch to get it beyond Karras, and obviously as he's gone to get the ball, obviously Karras has absolutely clattered him and brought him down. So really for me, obviously we scored the penalty, which is great, another assist for Zaha, and actually that just shows something for his efforts. So Andros Townsend, I thought he was fantastic offensively, but he had nothing to show for it, whereas Zaha here, he was just as good offensively, but actually once again latching onto that long ball, obviously getting taken down in the area, he actually got the assist and something to show for all of that attacking intent. Now obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold's been quite fantastic this season for Liverpool, a revelation you could say, in the fact that how well he's defended. But actually I thought Wilfried Zaha done a fantastic job in terms of when he was one-on-one making things happen, and actually Alexander-Arnold did struggle quite a lot with Wilfried Zaha. Now obviously I'm recording this on a Thursday, so quite a long time after the game, obviously as I was on holiday, but watching the Champions League against Manchester City, someone like Sane absolutely struggled against Alexander-Arnold, whereas someone like Zaha actually absolutely demolished Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he actually found it really difficult to deal with him. So really that just shows that actually how good Zaha is, and the fact that a player who can do really well against someone like Sane, who's obviously in the Champions elect team, whereas someone like Zaha can actually absolutely dominate him, really just shows how much quality Zaha has got. But obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold throughout the season has been really good. Whether it was an off game from him or whether it's because Zaha was so good, he obviously struggled to stop Zaha from making things happen. But quite a lot of the time, even though that was the case and it was quite easy for Zaha to get past Alexander-Arnold one-on-one, because Liverpool doubled up on their mark and they had 2 players on Zaha all the time, it was very effective. So although Alexander-Arnold was quite easy to get past, because they quite often had 2 players marking Zaha, it basically meant that he was restricted to as little chances as he could have had. Because I'm sure that if he wasn't marked up on, he wasn't double marked, and if he had just got to run at Alexander-Arnold for the whole game, I'm sure there would have been more chances he would have created in the game. But it was effective from Liverpool in terms of stopping us. So we stopped their attacking threat by having 3 solid midfielders in, you know, Luka, McArthur and Cabaye, whereas Liverpool nullified our attacking threat by obviously, you know, doubling up on Zaha. But I do still think he had quite a good attacking threat in the game. His decision making may not have been as good as Andros Townsend's, but the fact that he's got the assist to show for his attacking threat, and the fact that he was able to win that penalty, and the fact that he was able to, in order to win that penalty, he was able to get onto that long ball, that flick on ball, that was of course great to see as well. So Wilfried Zaha here didn't get a goal in this game, but got another assist. Overall attacking play was really good, and if it wasn't for Liverpool doubling up on him for most of the game, he probably would have had more chances. So Wilfried Zaha here, a 7 for him. Now let's move on to our final player and striker, Christian Benteke, who I am going to give a 3. His misses are beginning to get a bit ridiculous now. In the second half, he was gifted 2 glorious chances to put Palace ahead, but squandered both in embarrassing fashion. The first was a bouncing ball behind the defence. Karius came rushing out and Benteke lobbed the ball over the goalkeeper and the goal. The second was much worse. Townsend had worked hard to draw defenders towards him and then released the ball to Benteke. In space and with time inside the box, the forward fired over again. So Christian Benteke here, I've given him a 3, and before I go on to talk about his performance and chances he missed, I've got to say that actually I've defended him quite a lot this season, saying that he's low on confidence and actually his performances have been really good. But this was just a step too far for me personally, because the chances he had in this game, I think even I could have scored, and really for me, you can't really be forgiven for missing such big opportunities. But personally for me, throughout the whole of this season, I've given him quite a lot of credit for his performances, saying he's getting involved quite a lot and he's getting quite a lot of assists. And although he isn't getting the goals, he's still involved. And personally for me, I think that praise was warranted. I think that most people just looked at the fact that he hadn't scored goals, but actually if you look at the bigger picture, he was playing really well. But this game here against Liverpool, you know, unlike games in the past where he was winning headers, setting up other players with assists, and he was actually linking up the play between the midfield and the forwards, we didn't see that at all in this game, and that's why I've given him a 3, because obviously the chances he missed are, you know, terrible, absolutely embarrassing, the fact that he missed them. But also, if you put them misses aside, I think his overall performance didn't match up to the ones he's had in previous games. Because like I've said, in previous games, he's obviously not scored goals, but he's assisted some and he's actually had an overall good performance. Whereas here, he didn't have a goal because he missed the chances, but also he didn't have the performance to go with it. So I'd much rather a player not score, but still put in a good performance, but Benteke did do neither here. But like I've said already, you know, this season he's missed loads of chances, only scored 2 goals, and really for me the misses are beginning to get a bit ridiculous now. You know, in the second half, obviously first half he was fairly quiet, but in the second half, 2 glorious chances to put us ahead, but he squandered both of them. You know, they're really embarrassing misses really for me. I think even me with my limited footballing ability, I think even I could have scored them chances and put them in the back of the net. But they were 2 glorious chances, 2 fantastic bits of play. You know, one of them, obviously a ball over the top, a bouncing ball, and then the second one, a fantastic ball from Townsend after he drew the defenders away and put the through ball in. So it wasn't like these were difficult chances, these were fantastically worked opportunities to get Benteke in the area. But like I said already, he wasted both of them. You know, the first one was obviously the bouncing ball over the defence. Karius came rushing out, which obviously made it slightly easier in the fact that he wasn't on the goal line. But Benteke, rather than being composed like he was against Chelsea, where he just dinked it over the goalkeeper, he put a little bit too much power on it, and although he got it over the goalkeeper, he also got it over the goal. Now that one's slightly forgivable in the fact that it's quite difficult to dink the goalkeeper when you're that close to him, and obviously there's loads of players around you, and the fact that the ball was bouncing, so I can forgive him for that one. But the second one is unforgivable. You know, it was even worse than that one. And obviously they're both as bad as each other really, because they're both 2 missed chances which could have won us the game. But the second one was absolutely unforgivable. You know, Townsend, I've given Townsend quite a lot of credit, because I thought in this game, especially in that piece of play, he worked really hard to actually draw the defenders away, to create the space for Benteke. He then obviously released the ball to Benteke, lovely ball to him. He had space in the box, so he had time to think about it. He also obviously, you know, had the time. There were no players around him, and instead of thinking about it and just taking his time and trying to just get it in the far corner, he just latched at it really quickly and he fired over again. You know, that was a fantastic chance, not only because it was put on a plate for him, but the fact that he had the time and space to think about it. But instead, whether it's because he's low on confidence, but whatever it was, he didn't think about it and he blazed it over. So I'm sure that any other player on the pitch, you know, who likes of MacArthur or Zaha, if they had that chance, rather than just, you know, lashing out at it, they would have took advantage of that time and space, and obviously would have taken that chance and scored from it. But Christian Benteke here, you know, I've defended him quite a lot this season, but this game I can't really defend him because the performance wasn't there. Even though he won the most aerial duels, nothing really came from them. He weren't really linking up the midfield and the attack really well. And once again, these missed chances he had weren't really great. But the one thing I'll credit him for is the flick on that he gave to Benteke, to Zaha. You know, long ball forward. Benteke's, you know, once again winning these aerial duels, heading it down to Zaha to create a chance. So if I have to give him one piece of, you know, one piece of not criticism, But one piece of good play he had in the game. I can't think of the word, which is quite bad. But yeah, if I had to give him, talk about one good thing about his game, it would be the fact that when he had these flick-ons, they would get into people. But his overall play was disappointing, and them 2 chances he missed were unforgivable. But, as I'm recording this on Thursday, he's just come out in the press conference that he may be injured for the game against Bournemouth, which just makes it even better, because it's another game he's going to miss, another game where he's going to lose confidence from not scoring, and another game where we're not going to have a proper striker, which ultimately means we might not even be able to score a goal against Bournemouth. So it's going to get even worse. So hopefully he's not that badly injured, and hopefully he'll be able to come back and eventually finally start scoring some goals again for Palace. But Christian Benteke here, another disappointing performance from him. So obviously towards the end of the game, obviously I talked about it already, briefly, in terms of most of the substitutes came on about the 70th minute. Obviously Loftus-Cheek came on about the 73rd minute when he came on for Cabaye. It wasn't necessarily great, and I'll probably give him a 5 for his performance, but he came on the pitch to obviously replace Cabaye, who was a bit tired, a bit fatigued. And personally for me, we know how good Loftus-Cheek was, but he's also coming back from injury, so didn't really make that much impact on the game, and still looked like he lacked that bit of sharpness. And obviously with the games coming up, and obviously with the week between the next game, hopefully he can work on his fitness towards that. But he did look a little bit off the mark in this game, but certainly he didn't necessarily be terrible. So coming on for Cabaye didn't really make an impact, but certainly he'd be an important player coming forward. And then Fosu Mensah here, I'm not really going to give him a rating, because he came back into the team for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, came in really late in the game, didn't really have the time to make an impact. And because obviously the game had already been won by Liverpool, there wasn't really any chance for him to make that much impact anyway. So really for me, the 2 substitutes, I understand why Roy made them, just to give a few fresh legs. But personally for me, neither of them made that much impact. Whether it's because of the match sharpness of both players, or whether it's just the fact that they weren't, they only played for a short amount of time, which meant they couldn't get into the game. Whatever it was, they were both, I wouldn't say ineffective subs, but they didn't have the effect on the game that Roy Hodgson would have liked. So personally for me, these players, yes, they're going to be important players going forward in terms of giving us fresh legs off the bench, but they didn't quite have that impact here against Liverpool. So now I'm just going to give you a small sort of summary of the game, and although I did sort of go over quite a few points at the beginning of the podcast, just to give you a sort of oversight of the game as I'm recording this a few days later, I'm just going to give you a summary here of the overall performance and obviously my overall views of the game. And obviously Palace, we were quite unlucky to come away with no points from this game, because I think even a point, when you consider the second half performance, would have been warranted. Because to be honest, yes, there were some individual errors, but I thought that the overall performance was very decent. So I think we were quite unlucky not to come away with at least a point. And I think that if we had not conceded them 2 goals, I think that a 1-0 win would have been quite lucky when you consider the attacking threat that Liverpool had. But to be honest, it's there's no doubt that Liverpool have some world-class players at the moment, the likes of Mohamed Salah, Roberto Firmino. But to be honest, they were quite quiet for the majority of the game, which really just once again highlights how much of a very decent performance it was for Palace. Because if it wasn't for these individual errors where we let the likes of Mane and Salah score, we probably would have gone on to get a point or win the game, purely because our overall performance was good. It was just some individual errors at important parts of the game which ultimately led to us losing the game. And when you consider, how good these players are, they beat Watford 5-0 the other week, so that just shows how good Liverpool are. But the fact that we were able to keep their 2 world-class players at the moment in Salah and Firmino quiet really just shows that actually how good the performance was. But to be honest, this performance just highlights really how well we defended against a top 6 side. So the fact that we can compete against them, we may not necessarily always win, but we can actually go forth and actually match a top 6 team. And once again, it just really puts us in good stead for the all-important run-in that's coming up, because we've got 6 very important games coming up. And of course, yes, we lost to Liverpool, but we've lost 5 top 6 sides. So really for me, the fact that we defended well against all of these top 6 sides, and the fact that actually we didn't necessarily get battered by them, and the fact that our performances were good even though we lost, that's surely going to put us in good stead for the important games coming up. Because surely if we can defend well and only marginally lose to top 6 sides, hopefully in the games we've got coming up, which I'm looking at the calendar now, we've got Bournemouth, Brighton, Watford, Leicester City, Stoke City and West Brom. We've got all of these important games coming up if we can play and have the same amount of intensity and performance against the top 6 sides and only narrowly lose, then hopefully this will put us in good stead for the games coming up, and hopefully with the continuation of these high levels of performances, hopefully results are to come. So I'm now going to move on to my Man of the Match award. But before I do that and give you my Man of the Match and who I thought the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to give you the 4 nominations I've put forward for the award. So the 4 players I put forward for the award, when you consider that actually the performance was a very strong performance from Palace and it was just individual errors which led to us losing the game, I think actually there were quite a few players that actually put in really impressive performances, and when you consider how well Liverpool have been playing this season, is obviously very good to see that actually players do come out with a bit of credit, because really when you've got one of the best teams in the league and you play as well as we did against them, you've obviously got to pick out the players for credit. So the 4 players I've put on the shortlist is the right back Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the midfielder Luka Milivojevic, and then 2 other midfielders in James McArthur and Yohan Cabaye. Now notable mention obviously goes to Wilfried Zaha. You know, he got the assist for the penalty and obviously was quite an attacking threat in the game, but personally for me, yes, he got the assist and he had something to show for his attacking threat, but he misses out on this shortlist purely because these players were even better, and the fact they were a little bit more consistent throughout the game, because I think that Zaha came in and out of the game, and although he did get the assist and win the penalty, other than that there were no outstanding parts from him, whereas these 4 players, I think actually there were parts of the game where they shone for me and actually showed a lot of quality against a tough opponent. So in terms of Wan-Bissaka, I thought that, you know, like he's done in his last few games, he's defended really well, made loads of blocks, made loads of tackles, so that was great to see. And once again, he's continuing to actually look part of a Premier League team. He doesn't look out of place, and he's, you know, making that right back role his own, and is slotting in there quite nicely. So the fact that he continued on with another solid performance is why I've put him on the shortlist. In terms of Milivojevic, when he goes up to take a penalty, it's almost certain that he's going to score it. I swear it's almost a 99.9% chance that he's going to score a penalty, purely because of the great technique he has. But he extended his lead, obviously, with that penalty at the top of Palace's top scorer list. And also, in terms of the Premier League, he's scored the most penalties this season. And in Europe's top 5 leagues, he scored the most penalties. So not only is he up there with Palace's top scorer, but obviously this goal was important for Palace in terms of getting us into the game, which ultimately we didn't hold on to. But he's also, you know, quite important in terms of he's actually up there with some of the Europe's elite players at the moment. But once again, you know, the penalty, there was great technique in terms of sending carries the wrong way and putting the penalty right into that bottom corner. But the main thing for me is, you know, put the penalty aside, his performance was fantastic. You know, Roberto Firmino likes to occupy the space between the defenders and the midfielders, and that's how he's got so many goals this season, in terms of lurking in that space. But because we had Luka there who was blocking up that space and actually being that protection to the back four, that basically restricted Roberto Firmino's chances. And just because of that, and because of how good defensively Milivojevic was in terms of making tackles and blocks in that area between the defence and midfield, that's why he's on the shortlist. Obviously James McArthur, as he always is, he's got lots of energy in this game here, very precise and efficient with his passing. You know, whether it was a long pass or a short pass to start up attacks, whatever it was, I thought he was very good at it. And also, you know, another very nice display from him. So once again, one of our more consistent players in the team, but once again putting in a very good performance here. And, you know, much like Milivojevic, he was very good defensively, but also going forward, like I've said already, with his precise passing, whether it was short or long, that was of course great to see as well. Then the final player on the shortlist is Yohan Cabaye. When I was writing this shortlist, I was thinking between McArthur and Cabaye and Wilfried Zaha, but I picked Cabaye and McArthur purely because I thought that in terms of the game, I thought that we won the midfield battle and it was important to, you know, recognise these players for it. But I thought that Cabaye, the thing that made him slightly better than Zaha was the fact that he was the guy who was setting up the attacks. So Cabaye was the one who was showing an impressive range of long passing in terms of creating loads of attacking opportunities on the counter-attack with his passing ability. And like I've said, when he was given space, he was able to create stuff for Palace, which was of course great to see. And there was one in particular where he put the ball to Zaha. So although Zaha won the penalty, and that was great to see, obviously Cabaye was one of the architects of one of Zaha's chance where he chipped the ball to him, and obviously Zaha was able to get on the end of it because the Liverpool back line was bemused. So personally for me, the fact that Kabay and McCarthy were both setting up attacks and were obviously winning that midfield battle, that's why personally for me they make it onto the shortlist as opposed to Wilfried Zaha. But personally for me, I think that all four of these players do deserve credit, and I think they obviously helped us to get a foothold in the game, and it's quite unlucky for us in terms of the individual mistakes which led to us losing the game, because I do think if we went on to win the game or even draw the game, I do think it would have been down primarily to these four players who I thought were fantastic. But do comment below with your man of the match and whether you do agree with the shortlist. But personally for me, there's only one winner. I gave him an 8 in the player ratings, and that is Luka Milivojevic. So congratulations, Luka. You don't win a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was another solid performance from you. And the main thing which put him above the others for me is obviously he scored the goal, which automatically puts him above other players. But mainly for me, the fact that how well he played defensively in terms of stopping Roberto Firmino is the main thing I've put him on the why I've picked him for my man of the match. Because if he hadn't have played so well defensively, Roberto Firmino would have had lots more space in front of the defence and in between the midfield and the defence, so he probably would have had a few more chances and probably scored. But because of how well Luka was playing in that position, it ultimately meant that Firmino didn't do that. So personally for me, Luka does fully deserve the award. But special mentions to Wan-Bissaka, McCarthy and Kabay, whose performances were also very good. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got interviews with Roy Hodgson, Martin Kelly, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Patrick Van following the game.
Martin, a great start today, but how gutting was it to lose it late on?
Yeah, it was gutting. We worked our socks off to try and keep them at bay. I thought we'd done that for the majority. We kept the front three quiet, and it was just the two good crosses that they had, and they took the chances.
And there were some big incidents in that game. What did you make of the handball?
Which handball?
Mane for the free kick. Do you think it should have been a yellow card?
Oh yeah, I think anyone else on the pitch is given a yellow, obviously, but it is what it is. We got the free kick, and in different circumstances, it's a second yellow.
And playing against your former club today, Liverpool, we made a lot of chances and matched them right until the end. Does the team take encouragement from that going into the last run of fixtures?
I think all we can do is take encouragement. We keep playing these top sides. That was the last of the top sides that we've played, and we've created enough chances to win the game. It's just so frustrating that we lose it from being in a winning position. But we've got 6 remaining games now that we know we need to give the performances that we're giving, and be as solid as we can as a unit, and take each game as it comes, and try and get the 3 points each match.
Play today live, but it looks to me like you're equal to it.
It's a challenge that I've taken, and I'm happy with the opportunity I was given. So yeah, I just want to keep going forward.
And you've got good guys around you, alongside you, obviously lots of experience. James Tompkins not playing today, but you've got Kelly, you've got Sacco, and people who know the game back to front.
Yeah, they help me a lot all the time, keep my head up, support me, talk to me, tell me where to go. So that's good, and it helps. It makes it a lot easier.
What is it like facing an opponent like Sadio Mane today? Because he is so quick.
Yeah, it's quite tough, but I think what you just need to do is just stay on your feet, and stay and look at the ball. Don't dive in, just time it. Yeah.
You've played in the last few weeks against City, United, Liverpool, Arsenal, all the big teams. You've got 6 games to go now. Even though you've lost today, it's still basically in your own hands to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think the team can do it. We just need to stick together, keep putting in a good performance. I think we'll get there.
Well, I think you want to watch. I enjoyed your performance today. Thank you for talking to us.
Thanks.
Patrick, well played today, but fair to say not the result we were looking for.
Nah, not really, no. I think we started the game very well. A couple of balls in behind them and caused some problems. That's where we got the penalty. And after that, didn't give away any more chances, not a lot. And in the second half, I think they started a bit dominator. And yeah, I think overall, we don't deserve to lose, I think.
There were some big incidents in that game. You took the free kick after the Mane handball. What did you make of it?
Yeah, and just got the ball with him, and he clearly handball the ball back to him, and I don't understand why that wasn't a second yellow. But the referee makes his decision. You know, we gotta get on with it, and yeah, but nothing else I can say.
Another performance where we've matched the big teams right until the end. Can you take encouragement from that?
Yeah, of course. We managed them. Like I said, we lost, so a bit disappointed with that. I think we at least deserve the draw today. But we go again. You know, we got Bournemouth next week, and we got 6 more games left. So we'll see.
And finally, on a personal note, you've really impressed with your performances recently. How happy are you with your own form?
I'm trying to do my best every day. You know, trying to help my teammates, trying to be there for them, and trying to do my best every day. So yeah, but I'm happy that I can do well for the team and for myself. You know.
We had to work very hard defensively to get behind the ball and remain compact. They actually didn't score in that period of time, but really throughout the game, if you look at them over the 95 or 96 minutes, our goalkeeper wasn't under enormous pressure, and our back four dealt for the best part with what Liverpool had to come with. But you know, right at the end, a chance falls Salah's way. It was a good piece of play on his part to fool Sako there, and Sako had dived to block his obviously left foot shot, and he let the ball run across his body. And I suppose that's why he's a top goal scorer in the league, and why they're near the top of the league, because we ourselves in the second half created a couple of very good chances, and I thought put their back four, if not to the sword. We asked them a lot of questions.
Christian Benteke had a big hand in the move that led to the penalty, of course, winning the flick on. He did that several times. Liverpool found him hard to deal with. There was some good defensive work from Benteke as well, but ultimately he's a striker who gets judged by goals, and he missed 2 great chances.
He did, of course. I thought, once again, his all-round performance was very good. I thought it was extremely good up until the 2 missed goal chances. I think that obviously affected him. I didn't think that his work after that was quite as good as it had been in the previous minutes, because they're human beings. I mean, he so desperately wants to score. He so desperately wants to do well. He's working so hard to be the type of centre forward we want him to be. But you could obviously see that when those 2 chances came his way and he couldn't take them, it did have a mental effect on him. And it's up to me and the coaching staff and the other players to make it clear to him that we're really very pleased with what he's doing, and he's actually being a very good centre forward for us at the moment. And we can only hope that he doesn't allow a missed goal chance or 2 to really affect what he can do for us for the rest of the game.
And I know from the dugout you're probably not aware of the crowd, and I'm pretty sure that when you're a player you're not that aware of the crowd, but there was a kind of collective sort of groan when the second chance was missed. And that, if he's aware of that, I'm not sure he would be, but if he is, that'd be tough.
I'm pretty sure he is. I mean, I don't, even we are aware of it, because of course the crowd, they're supporters and fans like we are in the dugout. You know, you always hope that when a chance comes your team's way, it's going to be taken. And especially for us at the moment in our situation, and especially when you're playing against Liverpool. You know, to be fair, you know, they have some very talented, very expensively assembled players. They're in very good form. When you create chances against them, you really do need to take them. But we didn't, and we made a couple of mistakes for the goals, and at the end of the day they go away with the points and the victory, and we suffer the defeat. But we've just got to pick ourselves once again up off the ground and try and make certain that we don't allow it to affect our confidence, because I don't believe the players should be suffering from a lack of confidence. I think they should actually be feeling quite good about the way they're defending, about the way they're attacking. And if we can continue doing that for 6 more games, I'm sure that the points will come. You know, we won't be as, if unlucky is the right word, we certainly won't be punished as much for very few mistakes as we've been in the last few games at home here.
I've never known a manager quite rightly say that, you know, he likes the look of the games ahead, because your toughest game is always the next one, I suppose. But on paper, Roy, it's a reasonably favourable run-in.
You don't play on paper, though, do you? You know, you play against other teams, and the teams we play against will be every bit as determined to win the game as we are. They'll work as hard as we do. They'll be physically as good as we are, and they'll have good players too. It's not just Liverpool and the other top teams that have the monopoly on top players. In the Premier League, there's good players in every team. We've got good players here ourselves. So I don't subscribe to that theory that, okay, you've got the top 4 out of the way and now life will be easier. It won't be. We had to work very hard last week to get our result against Huddersfield and played very well in that game. We've got to reproduce those performances in the next 6 games and then hope that if there's any fortune going, it will come our way, because I don't think we can regard ourselves as a lucky team this year.
Finally, Roy, I mean, there's nothing a supporter loves more than a young local boy making the impact on the team. And I've just been speaking to a guy I'd not seen him before live, and was very impressed. Aaron Wan-Bissaka looks a real prospect.
Absolutely, and he's another one. He's got to make certain that if he makes an error or two, as he's going to do, that doesn't affect him. It did for a short period in the second half. I thought after their equalising goal, where he obviously felt he could have done a bit better. But that affected him, I thought, for 10 or 15 minutes. You could sort of see, but he came over that very well and got back to being the Aaron Bissaka that he's been for us in these last few games. And the only reason I changed him towards the end, because in Fosu Mensah we have a player who's very strong, very powerful, very quick. I thought with them tiring and with us having quite a lot of the ball, he might get forward a bit more and cause a few more problems in their penalty area. But Aaron can once again be very happy with his performance.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Roy Hodgson, Martin Kelly, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Patrick Villano had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Liverpool. But make sure to comment next week from a post-match review of the game against Bournemouth. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.